Alright everyone, and welcome to tutorial number 3. I've decided to do this one on a different day, so we're just bringing it back early, so we've released 2 this week. Just to sort of add on top of the one on Monday, which wasn't very, there wasn't much video footage to it, I guess. It was more just me rambling on and stuff, which today is going to be a bit about me, rambling on a bit as well. But we're going to jump in game and we're going to use some examples and show you guys a couple of different aspects of our crashing compounds, which is one of the top 3 that you guys had. It didn't come anywhere. Oh no, it was very close, sorry, to beating IGLing. So I wanted to go through it anyway because I think it's really important, especially this is much more of a competitive play sort of one, because most people when they're in matchmaking, crashing compounds is just do it however you want sort of thing. But in competitive, it's actually a really daunting and intimidating experience I think for a lot of teams. I'm going to show you guys just some reasons to why it might not be as risky as you guys think, or how to lower the risk and how to sort of take control over a situation when you're crashing. So hopefully this will give you guys a little bit of an insight on how to do it, and I would love to see a lot of these teams that don't like to do it start taking some risk in doing it and making sure they're doing it at the right time. So we'll start with number 1 here, and that's when and why you might crash a compound. Now, this one's, all the things that we're going to go through today are very dependent on, how many people you have, your positioning versus their positioning, okay? But this is just like, just a little bit of the basics behind it anyway. So when you might want to crash a compound is, if you can recognize that a team is potentially doing a 2-2 split, or if you've gotten a knock, or in some way, shape, or form, they aren't a full man squad, then this is your opportunity to, breach a compound. Now, you may have gathered that information in any way that you want, but some of the best ways to figure out if they're doing a split is see what compound they're open to and see if they're trading shots back and forth. So there's a couple of compounds in this game. Now, this isn't one of the examples I'm going to give you. I'll leave this for you guys to work out. But there are a couple of examples in game where you can actually work out who is actually splitting with each other based off of who's running your outside. Oh, this person's open to this compound. They've been open for 10 seconds. They haven't been shot at. These guys might be teammates. Have you only seen, a couple of people moving around? You need to make sure that you've been looking at it for a while to determine whether or not that they are, splitting or, solo or 3-man or 2-man, whatever it may be, to choose when to crash. But that's a really good time to crash, is when they are split and then the teammates can't really get there in time to back them up, okay? So that's a really good time as to when you might want to do it. The other time is when you get a knock, so you looking for a knock, but when you're doing that, you normally have to be near and ready for your vehicles to make sure that you capitalize off of that knock before they've even rezzed and healed, and then you're just, you're only just arriving. So, those are the times you need to do it, and that's normally when, you're really looking, hey guys, we're outside of the zone, we want to breach this, let's get a knock, and then let's go. So everybody's on the same page, okay? So those are the whens you might want to crash anyway. So that's pretty simple stuff. But yeah, we'll move on to the why. Now the why can be for so many different reasons. But like so using the knowledge from before, if you know that a team's splitting, or if you know that teams like to split phase 1s, phase 2s, phase 3s, I'll be honest, it's something that we like to do. We've been punished for it in the past before, so we have to adapt to that. Atletico love doing it. There's a lot of teams that love doing splits in competitive. So if you can identify, maybe they got a knock, maybe they I don't know, maybe you just noticed that they, there's only a certain amount of players in that compound. This is a really good opportunity for you guys to get some extra points on the board. So there's a little bit of a risk that, hey, you might, lose it down or something like that. But if you're feeling confident enough that you know which buildings they're in, that they're split and whatnot, you should be able to do it without losing any casualties, especially if you have enough utility. Because when you're crashing compounds, it's really important to have that utility. And I'll explain that again later in number 2 here. In how to crash compounds, but yeah, it's very important that you have utility. All right, the other thing is that you just really want the power position. So sometimes in some certain situations, you might be a little bit late to the party, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get a strong spot inside the zone. It might mean that you have to fight for it, yes, but there is, like I said, if we go through this and you guys learn how to crash compounds, that fight might not be necessarily the worst idea. It might be a really good idea, rather than holding your edge position or whatever it may be that you just don't really like. So that's why you might crash a compound anyway. So we'll hop in game now, and I'm going to show you guys a couple of different, probably about 4, maybe 5. And we're going to start with the least common crashing, and then move on to probably the ones that you guys encounter a lot, in which ones, are going to be crashed the most, because there's just more of it on the map, or because it's very important to have that sort of building, and then we can go from there. Alright, cool. Let's jump in. Alright, all I'm going to say here, guys, is do you like my drawing? I think it's fabulous. Alright, so we just jumped into paint very quick, because I'm going to give a very, very basic idea as to how you're going to breach a compound. So number 2 was different compounds and how to breach them. Okay, and so obviously this isn't a specific compound, obviously this isn't a specific scenario, this is just the pure basics of breaching. Okay, and we're going to go through it with each one as well when we jump in game. So the blue areas here, so the green area is a house, blue areas are the windows, and then black is your players for your soft breach, which we'll talk more about later. And then this is our vehicle with our 3 passengers into us. This is our breaching. Okay, so pretty much this is an example of a bad breach. Okay, so this is not the way you want to do it. So pretty much it's all about line of sight, and again I'm going to go in depth about it when we get in game. But pretty much this vehicle needs to have line of sight with the soft breacher, with the window or the area that he's traveling to. So if he's planning to breach this side, I can just quickly draw on it. I don't know, like this side itself. If he's planning to breach that side, then he needs to make sure that he's giving his soft breacher the best line of sight on the opponents shooting at them as they can. Because what normally happens when somebody hears a car and they're in a compound, they shoot at it. They don't necessarily think about the person out back first. So what they do is they just try and get in the best position they can to put as many bullets into this vehicle as they can. The only problem is if they do recognize, or you start shooting and start missing, we need to make sure that they can't shoot at the vehicle. Okay, so here this vehicle, if I had a player on this side of the window, boom, they've got line of sight on the vehicle, but our player has a wall in the way, which is stopping him from shooting the person shooting at my vehicle. Okay, and that's what we need to avoid when we're breaching. Okay, so what I would do in that stead is you start looking at, and now this is only, again, it's not going to work perfectly every single time, but if we could somehow move this vehicle in line with my teammate's arrow for the window, then we're all gravy. Okay, so we'll get rid of the car here, get rid of the lines. There's probably a faster way to do it, but bear with me. Alright, cool. I'm going to move this arrow slightly. I'm just going to make it a bit crooked, because why not? That's how CAD does it. It makes it a bit crooked. Boom. Alright, cool. So let's say the car is traveling on this plane, like this when coming in. Alright, I'm not going to put wheels on it because that's a bit tricky. And now all of a sudden, if I can find the eraser, now all of a sudden, from that position there, that window, they don't have line of sight of my vehicle. So now they've got to change, alright? And so they've either got to change position to about, I don't know, let's say here to shoot at the vehicle, and that's got line of sight with my player. And the other one is if they go there. Alright, if they go there, my teammates should almost, if they just move a couple of meters that direction, then should be able to have an angle on those guys. Does that make sense? That's the only way they can hit the vehicle. Now, if they've done that, and you've noticed that they've really, really pushed themselves over to that right window and really got that corner, then what your job as the breachers is to do is then you can start coming in this direction, and then creating that line of sight. Does that make sense? Onto this new line. That's what you need to look for. Okay, and that's really, really, really tricky to do, and try and, engage, everybody, like the driver and the person holding the soft breach for you at the back, to try and get on the same page with. But that's the gist of it, guys. Create the exact same line of sight as your player holding behind you is as the car. Too many times will I see a vehicle go on a completely different line of sight, and they're getting shot up, and they're like, why aren't you shooting at them? It's like, well, I can't see them, can I? So that's something you need to be aware of. So let's jump in game here, guys. I said I was going to do it before, but now we're actually going to do it. And let's jump into some scenarios. Okay guys, so number 2 for today was different compounds and how to crash them. And this is our first one that we're going to go through. This is our petrol station, our petty as well. I don't know, my team calls, I think a fair few do. We're going to talk about petty. We're just going to talk about this one in particular because I have to jump in the replays here, and obviously like you can see my team in the minimap there. So we have to make sure that we're sort of near it, otherwise it's all blurry and fuzzy. So we're going to talk about this petty in general. Most of them are pretty, so again, like all the things that we talk about, this is just the basics of it. You can interpret this however you want into all the other petties, but they should be transferable. The things we talk about should be transferable between all the compounds and stuff, okay? So just because this is one petty doesn't mean it's not going to work for the others. Now, a lot of the things you need to focus on when you're doing breaches is LOS, which means line of sight, okay? How can you make sure that you're opening yourself to as little line of sight as possible, or if potentially this is better for you, no line of sight at all, which you can potentially do here at this petrol station. Alright, so ultimately petrol stations are one of the easiest to, okay, I'm gonna say breach, so get your, vehicles at least to the destination without having lost anybody. Not necessarily saying that you're going to win the fight, but this is, yeah, one of the easiest to get up close and personal, and then it's probably an even fight from there, okay? So petty, obviously, all the petties have these walls. This one's sort of made a little bit differently to all the other ones. Look at this, poor work right there. That's clearly impossible, just saying. Alright, so it's a little bit different anyway to the other petrol stations around the map, but what you need to do is make sure that you're when you're breaching, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You do a hard breach, or you could do what I like to call a soft breach, okay? And a soft breach, I don't think anybody else calls this a soft breach, but I'm going to explain. A soft breach is where you send maybe 2, 3, or you could even send 1 out in front and you have somebody covering, okay? So that's a soft breach. And pretty much, if you're doing a soft breach, the person that is covering needs to have the most line of sight possible to whatever you think your threats are going to be. So in this situation with this big wall here, if you're coming in from this direction, so say that's a melee zone and you really want control of the petrol station, which is, again, this is why do you breach? Because you want control, alright? So if we're coming in from this direction, probably your only 2 threats are going to literally be this wall here, peeking out of the edge, boom, and then this wall over here, peeking out of the edge. So if you're doing a soft breach, the odds of them being there are not very high, by the way, as well. They've probably got other problems to deal with, or they're probably doing something else and somewhere else. But yeah, if you're doing a soft breach, you need to make sure that you're allowing your person who is watching to have angles or line of sight over those specific areas, okay? So if I'm, standing here, and this is me covering because I pulled up nice and early, if my vehicles are going to be driving in from this direction over here, and they're going, and there's somebody peeking here from this corner. Now, I know that there's a little bit of a gap underneath here, but let's say for the benefit of the doubt that this isn't here. This is just to really, really help you guys. That's a hard shot to hit. If they're driving in from that hut, let's say, and they're standing here, and they get to shoot at you as you're coming in, at what point does your player that's watching over you get to see them? Right there. That's when. So they get from this aspect here, so you're coming in through the field, let's say the second furthest up, let's say you're driving in from that direction, they've shot at you this whole time while your teammate hasn't been able to do anything. If they're on this side, however, and they want to peek it, boom, they're here, so your teammate was like where that bush is, like they're dead. Pretty much. So that's a really good spot to set up if you're going to LOS from that direction. So pretty much what I'm trying to say here, guys, is when you're breaching, you need to make sure that you're coming in from the direction that your soft breach person is watching from. So instead of coming in from this direction and breaching, yeah, even though it might be a bit more of a faster route and a little bit less bumpy or whatnot, if you come in from this direction here, just in line with your teammate, boom, 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 and you're driving in this direction, not only does this person have to open themselves up to that direction, they also have to open themselves up here. So these are your only 2 threats. They have to open themselves up here to shoot at you, which is open to your person watching. Alright, does that make sense? So you need to make sure that you're almost, if you, I can do, yeah, if it's almost like as if you're in a line pretty much, okay? And that's how you're going to do it. Alright, so like on my earlier demonstration. So So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it in game, okay? So for this petrol station, you would normally want to come in to this wall, then just make sure if you're doing a soft breach, you're going like that. If it's a hard breach, you guys can pretty easily just do a hard breach on this one as well and just go straight in through the middle and then work your way from there. Obviously, when you're breaching this compound, you need to be careful of getting nades lobbed over, and you need to care your feet because people can go prone there. Alright, and then pretty much from there, what you can do is you can either go that way or you can go that way really easily as a 4-man and start controlling the petty. Alright, if you're going to breach from this, it's the same sort of scenario. You've got to understand where your players are and where your threats are. Let's say you've got, look, a vehicle, woohoo! Alright, let's say you got a vehicle here, you got 3 in the vehicle, and maybe you've got 1 covering from fire station, okay? Let's say they're on the roof. Alright, so from the roof, they've got pretty awesome line of sight. So if they've got awesome line of sight, that does not mean you start driving out this way and then coming in and then going, woo! Boom, and then you start breaching from that direction because you think, you know, there's nobody on this side. That's not what you should be doing. Make sure you keep your line of sights open to your soft breacher, okay? So that's what we're going to call this guy, the soft breacher. That's a bit weird, but oh well. Alright, and then yeah, you can breach from wherever you would like. And while you're doing that, that soft breacher should be giving you information on exactly where the players that are shooting you are at and where you should probably pull up, okay? Cool. Alright, well that's the petty for you guys. That's here. This could be translated to any sort of petty. We're going to move on to a couple of more different scenarios here. And we're going to jump over to the sugar compound next, okay? Alright everybody, so we've jumped over now back in game and we're at the sugar compound now. Now I'm going to use this one as an example. It's plain and simple because I loot it, okay? So let me get rid of that. It's plain and simple because I loot it, and that's because it's in the replay. And I played a lot of competitive games recently on my replays and I can't open them. So I've got to use a couple of these ones as examples. Now this sugar compound does not get breached very often. I'll make that very clear, but there are so many around the map that are very, very common getting breached. There's one down near south of Pachinki. I'll open the map. So you have this one here. This one's a very, very, very common one to get breached. You have a couple in Yaz. There's not very many Yaz circles. There's a lot of times that you might actually want to breach the Yaz ones. There's one in Rozhok which likes to get breached as well. So there's a couple around the map that you know, are very important in learning how to hold, okay? So we're just going to use this one as an example. And again, if you just apply these to all the other ones, then you should be sweet. Now, every single building has weak spots. In my opinion, every single building has weak spots. I mean, it's just your job to determine where the weak spots are and how to best use them as your advantage. So pretty much for me, weak spots is where aren't the windows. Alright, because windows provide a line of sight for your opponent. Windows provide opportunities for nades to come out when you're breaching. So that's the area that you guys need to target when you're trying to breach. So on the sugar compound, we need to find out which wall has the least amount of or opportunities to shoot at you, okay? So that one there is pretty clean, and this one here is pretty good as well. Yeah, it's the same on the other side as well. So there's like 3 windows. This one's definitely not a go zone, alright? All 4 of these can be shot out of, pretty much, and including the doors, actually. Alright, so you've got 3 here that can be shot out of. And here's a little bit funky. So these ones here, you can't really shoot out of. I think you can jump on something, you can maybe shoot out, but that's like barely going to be shot out. That one can't be shot out of as well. There's no way that that's going to stop any sort of breach. It can get nades out of though. And then this one and this one are probably the only 2 in the doors, obviously. So this one is probably for me the weakest side, if not the other 2, okay? And so pretty much if you look at this whole corner is completely unplayable for opponents. So in saying that, if you're trying to breach a sugar compound, if you come in on this sort of a direction, they've only really got these small little angles, really tiny little angles to shoot you from when you're coming up like here. Oh, geez, if I can get that angle, sort of there, and even then they've got the bars to contend with, and then maybe from here they can shoot you as well. They can clearly shoot you from here. So this is what we said in number 1. Remember how we talked about your soft breacher? This is the person who's now going to make sure that, you know, they're watching. This is your threat angle if you're breaching a sugar. So if you can, try and breach the sugar from either this angle or this angle. Alright, and that way they're very good. They've got the smallest amount of line of sight on you as possible. Now, I know there's a heap of buildings around this compound, but again, for the sake of this, we're just talking about the sugar compound here. And then these are the angles that you guys want. Preferably, this one's okay, but because these windows can be shot out of, that's more line of sight. Whereas this one's probably a lot nicer, okay? And if push comes to shove and this person hasn't been knocked or they're not under pressure, you guys can easily just jump in here as well and slot here. The other reason why this side is actually really really good as well is because we need access into the building, okay? If we're just going to sit on the outside, eventually we're going to get third partied, or we're going to get naded to death, or it gives them time to make plays and get angles, okay? So our job is to get inside the house as fast as possible, because remember, the reason you're breaching is because they're split. The reason that, you know, they're split and this is a good breach is because they can't get backup. We don't want to give them time to get backup. Okay, so this window here is you can jump in and through, and it's very, very, very rare in a sugar compound that people are actually going to hold just this room, okay? When you get inside that room, you can then make sure you get control of the lower ground. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say this, I'm going to regret it, if people are splitting and there's only one person in this house, they are normally upstairs because they get the best line of sight, okay? So you pretty much got safe access into the bottom area, and then you just swarm the person up the stairs, nade them, stun them, whatever it may be, okay? So that's the sugar compound anyway, and that's pretty much how you're going to work with all the compounds that we're going to talk about today, is that you need to find that weak spot. Okay, so that's the weak spot of the sugar compound. That's how you're going to get inside, and that's how you're going to take control over the situation. Okay, and remember, your soft breacher needs to be make sure they're watching the angle that is of the most threat, and then you guys need to make sure that you're driving in the angle that they would force the person watching to be open to. So that balcony there. So don't drive this way, you know, and then let them have that angle there where they can just peek you through here. Alright, or don't drive this way and then let them peek the windows, and your teammate is set up at this shack, which clearly can't really see the windows. They actually can't see anything. Yeah, so let's say here, where they've got really good line of sight on the balcony, but they don't have very good line of sight on the windows, okay? So that's what we need to avoid. Alright, cool. So we're going to move on to another compound. Next, we're going to look at the triple stories. There's a couple of different triple stories, but yeah, we're going to go through one in particular, and then again, it just goes from there. And then after that, we've got the garage, and then we are donezo. Alright, cool. Let's jump over. Alright, guys. So again, we've got a little bit of a tricky situation here where this, again, is not necessarily the triple that would normally get breached in terms of like a hard breach from a vehicle. If anything, it would be from this angle, but the things we're going to talk about is not necessarily very, you know, it's not about this angle. So it's about, again, finding the weak spots and then trying your best to go from there. There is a weak spot about this side, and we'll talk about it as well. But pretty much, like, for all the triples, we need to find out which one has the least amount of line of sight. So if I go around here, and around here, I keep going around. So it's pretty clear to see that probably the weakest angle here would be this side. It has the least amount of windows. Nobody plays a bathroom of the toilet, okay, on the bottom floor of that. So it gives us pretty much 3 windows for them to look through. Now, again, almost 9 out of 10 times, you'll always find, if somebody's solo inside a building, you'll almost always find them at the top level here, okay? So that is why this side can be a little bit stronger, because they've actually got to go downstairs, and then we'll have to react to hearing the vehicles, and then come downstairs, and then use these windows to shoot at you, alright? And there's actually another really good part about this side as well, is that when they do want to peek, and then you're coming in from that direction, again, they're going to be extremely open to your soft breacher, okay? So that's something that is really, really important to note about that side. But generally, you would like to look at, again, which side is the weakest. This one has the least amount of wins, least opportunities. You could almost come in from this angle, maybe around here, and you'd only be open for a little bit, driving in from this angle. Now, I know there's a building in the way, but again, for the sake of, you know, talking about the compounds, and there's different compounds where the building is almost by itself as well, like down your military base. Alright, so, yeah, that's the triple story. So making sure, again, that you're finding that weak spot, moving in and taking advantage. Again, when you get down into these areas, it's important that you get inside as quickly as possible. And then once you've established control of the bottom floor, then you can look at moving outside, nading and stuff. So I'd nade from this side, so I'm not open to the sugars. Jump back outside the window, start throwing in some nades. Maybe if you're feeling really, you know, risky, you can try to get some on the top level. Otherwise, just straight up push them. Yeah, and then you've got control over that tower. Triples are so sought after because of the fact that they've got so much height, so many line of sights that they can cover. So it's a very breachable compound. Okay, so it's very important that you have take control over these sort of compounds, and then make sure you use all those advantages to help you guys out in you know, your next fight, your next rotation, whatever it may be. Alright, cool. So again, doing it all as fast as you can is very important. Alright, so we're going to move over to the last one now, and that's the garage. This one is breached all the time, and I see so many times people don't know how to breach it. Alright, so we're going to go through the garage next, one of my all-time favorites of breaches. Alright, sweet. I'll see you there. Alright then, so now we've moved on to our last one. This is my all-time favorite. Now this one gets breached all the time in vehicles, and I think it's because there's a lot of garage compounds around the map that are generally like put with one other building, or like, you know, they're by themselves, like this one by themselves, one other building. So this place is big on garage crashing. So it's super important for you guys to know how to do it, because there's a little bit of a different structure to any of the others. There's different elements to it, and there's different strengths, there's different weaknesses. So yeah, we'll go through it now, and then so pretty much, again, it's all about weak points. As plain and dumb and boring as that sounds, it's all about weak points. But there's a couple of weak points in this building, okay? And it depends how you play. It depends where your soft breacher is set up, okay? So number one weakest spot to breach from is under here, okay? So if you're driving in from this direction, if you're fast enough, you've almost got complete access to this, especially if you have a soft breacher, let's say, perched up maybe here. They have access to the balcony. Nobody's going to go on the balcony and live to tell the tale. I'll tell you that right now. Not in a competitive game, if your soft breacher is sharp enough. The only other problem then is your offices. So you got the top stairs office, which is those right windows, what we call offices for the garage. So again, it's important to have callouts as well, guys, for your buildings. And I mean, we've got callouts, but I think it's important that you create your own. Okay, so these are the offices here. I know this doesn't look like much of an office. This is upstairs office, downstairs office. So when you're driving, they say, hey, I'm getting shot from upstairs office. Now your partner knows which one to look at, all right? Or, you know, if you're holding back, and you can tell your people that are driving what you're doing. And if there's too much fire coming in from the office, all you need to do is slightly change it up a little bit and come in from a slightly more left angle, and they're still not going to have line of sight on you. So that's a good way to even hard breach. You could hard breach that as a 4-man and pretty confidently be up against the wall, okay? The other thing is that you got to look out for is grenades. One reason why this isn't super duper strong is to get inside, okay? So you do have to go a little bit of a walksy to get in here. It's not the end of the world though. Boom, you're inside. But if you want to go around this way, because that way's not safe, I know this one's quite easy, but they got that angle to worry about, but yeah, it's not that bad. There's some other garages, it's not viable to go this way. And then if you have to go around the front, look at that. So you're pretty open if there's still somebody there, and your teammate's not covering. But yeah, that's pretty much that's one breach. The other weak spot is just here. So if you come up against this wall here and boom, crash there, it's very hard for them to kill you. They can't really get you, but one thing is that they can still crouch jump on these windows. Boom. So that's one thing to take note, and they can spray you out from crouch jumping up on the windows. Alright, so if you don't know how to crouch jump, I recommend trying to learn it, because that's super important, and you need to make sure that somebody's watching it as you're doing it as well, because otherwise you're going to get a little surprise attack, and then you might die. Yeah, so that's pretty much those ways how you can do it. The other direction is from here. This one's very risky though. All right, so if you're going to come up from this angle here, again, you've only got a couple of windows that they're open to, but the big one, and this is the reason why it's pretty strong, is because nobody really plays down here in this area. It's a little bit, I don't know. It's not ideal, because again, there's not much line of sight. But again, if you can set up a soft breacher, you're pretty much going to nullify any of those people peeking from that spot. I would actually more stand here, because you don't want to be open to those two windows there, because they're very strong. Alright, so somewhere around here, and then you just drive in and get in there. And then your best option to get inside is to go in through this bottom office. You can vault through these, and then you can get control. Alright, so that's the garage, and that's one of my favorites, alright? So pretty much that's it on how to breach a compound and the different sorts of ones. I know there's more that, you know, you can breach, but these are 4 of the main ones in my opinion. So more of the unique ones, I should say. And some of the more common. Okay, so now I'm going to very quickly just do a little bit of a touch on how to hold off some breaches and just some ideas. This is just going to be a ramble. It's going to be no demonstration, and then go from there. Alright guys, so we've jumped back here now. So we've gone through number 1 and 2. So hopefully you guys have a little bit more of an understanding on how you're going to crash a compound, and especially those 4 that we went through. And then if you apply all those principles, you can use them with almost any compound in the game. So just making sure that you're following those line of sight rules, and you guys are going to be sweet as, okay? And make sure that you're doing it at the right times. You don't want to crash a compound when there's 4 players there. So you need to make sure you're still getting those basic information things that we've covered in previous tutorial videos, and things we'll cover in later ones as well. So yeah, so we're going to very quickly just super quickly go through a couple of ways to defend against a crash. Now, some of the most common ways and most unexpected way is to make some pretty big plays. Okay, so pretty much taking the fight to them is often some of the best ways to defend against you, especially if you're solo and you're like, well, I'm going to die. If I just stay here, I'm going to die. That's one of the biggest things I see a lot of people do is they just sit there waiting and just be like, well, you know, if I just wait here, maybe they'll just go one by one. And I bet it very rarely works out. So one of the best ways to sort of surprise your opponents is with a grenade ready to go and understanding where they're going to breach based off their soft breacher. Okay, so if you can figure out where the soft breacher is, and then you can start, you know, seeing what sort of direction the vehicle is going to come from, you can have a cooked grenade ready to go and ready to land as they arrive, which means they cannot dodge it. You know, they're not going to see you cooking a grenade through a window as they're driving, and they're not going to hear it land because of the car. They're not going to be able to move because they're only just getting out of their car. They're just going to be focused on, oh my god, am I safe? Am I safe? Alright, so that's one of the best ways to surprise your opponents. The other one is making sure that you can jump out of a window. Be near a jumpable window. Have some windows broken, ready to go so they don't hear it break. And then jump out and then try and make some plays from a different angle that they just aren't going to expect. Alright, that's some of the best ways. Alright, and another way to defend, it's not necessarily defend against it, but make sure you have a vehicle ready to leave. Alright, so if you're in a garage compound, make sure it's safe, make sure it's turned the right way. If you have time, make sure it's ready to go. If you are confident that you are getting breached and you are going to lose your life if you stay, it is best if you can just zip, zip, zip out of there. If you're in a compound that you can't zip, zip out of there, why are you splitting it? Alright, so that's something that you've got to be very aware of. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I think, you know, it might be a bit of a risky thing to think about, but I hope that you guys are going to incorporate it into your game. If you have any questions, make sure you ask me in DMs on Discord, Twitter, whatever it may be, or in the comments for the YouTube video. Yeah, and I'll see you in the next one. So Monday, we're going to a Team VOD review tutorial, okay? And there's going to be a lot to talk about in that as there was in this. So I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.